email Delaney Leach, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and providing their name. Any amendment of the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council. Sorry, take that gavel back. We're moving forward. This is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to afford any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment respecting 410 Edith Cavell Boulevard in the municipality of Central Elgin. Any member of council have a disclosure of interest? Seeing none, what method of notice, Ms. Leach, and when was the notice given to the public, please?
Mayor Sloan, as per requirements of the Planning Act, notice was mailed by regular post to every owner of land within 120 meters of the subject land and applicable agencies on November 20th, 2025. Notice was physically posted to the property by municipal staff and also posted to the municipal website.
Thank you. I think we have Jesse McPhail, our planner, who's going to explain the zoning bylaw amendment. Thank
you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of council. So I'm here on behalf of my colleague, Mike Zalagi. He's the author of the report, but I'm familiar with the file. So this is 410 Edith Cavell Boulevard. So this zoning bylaw amendment is essentially to help facilitate the removal and reconstruction of a dwelling on the subject lands. So the lands are currently zoned an OS3 zone to recognize the existing residential use. This is zoning designation that's been applied to much of the waterfront or beachfront properties along this area. So in line with a lot of those properties that are kind of along this strip here, the owner is looking to redevelop that lot. So to do so, they will require a site-specific R1 zone to be applied to help facilitate that, and that's just due to some of the pre-existing historical zoning restrictions on the site that would otherwise prohibit that to be carried out. So essentially, the owner, as I mentioned, there's an existing cottage building that's quite smaller than a lot of the other development on the strip there. They're looking to remove that and develop it with a more modern dwelling. The only kind of site-specific amendment that the owner is looking for is the introduction of a 1.2 meter side yard setback. And so I will say, similar to other properties, actually the ones right to the east and west of this property, that 1.2 meter interior side setback is consistent with what has been approved on those sites. One of the, I don't want to call it a concern, but one of the main considerations here is that the property is also located within the dynamic beach hazard area. So this is a hazard zone that is identified in the zoning bylaw. That being said, the developed portion of the site that is further north toward the road is not located within that area, and the Conservation Authority has provided input advising of no major concerns, but the requirement to obtain a development permit as part of the building permit process should council consider approval of the zoning bylaw amendment. Two final things here is just that a servicing and grading brief have been submitted just to ensure that servicing is appropriate and to ensure that in fact, that dynamic beach hazard in the proposed construction won't be negatively impacted or negatively impact adjacent properties as a result of that redevelopment. So if there are any questions, happy to answer any.
Thank you. Very comprehensive. Any questions from the council? Any questions from anyone public or online? I don't think we have any that have come up.
Mayor Sloan, there's no one online.
Okay. Is it that? Everyone has been given a fair opportunity to be heard. If there are no further questions, please be advised that any person wishing further information on the actions of council regarding the passing of a bylaw on the proposed amendment should email Delaney Leach, indicating which public meeting they wish to be notified on and providing their name and address. Any amendment to the bylaw will be considered at a future meeting of council. Thank you. Municipality of Central Elgin acknowledges that it is located on the land of the McKee Treaty that was signed by the Wyandot and Anishinaabe nations, including ancestors of Chippewas of the Thames First Nation. It's also the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Attawandaronk, and Mississauga Nation. These First Nations continue to provide ongoing stewardship of the land and waters in the municipality of Central Elgin. Adoption of previous minutes. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that the minutes for the special meeting of council dated November 24th, 2025 be adopted.
Questions or comments about the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Correspondence requiring action. SC 1825 is the Childcan polar bear dip. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bachmann, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Bachmann, that the special events permit be approved for the Childcan polar bear dip event to be held in Port Stanley at Little Beach on Sunday, March 1st, 2026, subject to the conditions as outlined.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Heritage Central Elgin meeting minutes with recommendations. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Deputy Mayor and Councillor Griffin, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Griffin, that the minutes from the Heritage Central Elgin meeting held on November 26, 2025 be adopted, that a budget of that the 2026 budget of $6,475 for Heritage Central Elgin be approved, and that the 2026 Heritage Central Elgin Committee be appointed as follows. Chairperson Donald Leach, Vice Chairperson Mike Baker, Secretary Sally Martin. Members for Ward 1, Craig Cole, Kim Saunders, Nora Sanders, Bronwyn Fitzjames. Ward 2, John Martin, Sally Martin, and Mike Baker. Ward 4, Don Leach and Karen Vecchio. And Ward 5, Sandy Higgs.
Questions or comments, please? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Heritage designation for the Cole Fish House, 7435 Quaker Road. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Griffin, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Griffin, that the designation of the exterior of the building on the north, east, and south faces be approved as requested by the owners Alan and Sandra Fish and Greg and Kim Fish, and recommended by Heritage Central Elgin.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to reports. Director of Fire Rescue Services, Fire Chief. Are you going to do the welcome here? I know we have Mr. Do I pronounce it Hambites? Hambitis. Is Mr. Hambitis going to do a presentation, or do you want me to turn it over to you, Chief? Okay, Mr. Hambitis, if you'd come to the podium, please.
Doing an introduction, Chief, or no?
So through you, Mr. Sloan, John Hambitis is the principal for Pomax Consulting. He's here to present to you the overview of the Fire Master Plan and Community Risk Assessment documents. John and his team have done about 150 of these across North America for departments as large as Toronto and San Francisco, down to departments as small as, you know, some in northern, very remote northern areas. So they have a vast knowledge, a vast experience of different size municipalities, different understanding. It's very important to understand that with a master fire plan, it is a strategic document based with without bias. So at that point, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Hambitis.
This is going to take about, thank you, 22 minutes. We'll try to move it along. Certainly the good news is that you've got a very effective fire service, and that opens up the possibilities of efficiencies as well as effectiveness. So just as background, the objectives of this was to examine and research just about all aspects of the fire department. And sorry, I got quite a glare over here. And the alignment of services and resources, and as well as opportunities to adjust and revise the fire department's structure look at cost efficiencies and cost avoidance. Pop down one, Chief. Oh, thanks. The word strategy or strategies are included about 21 times in the request for proposals. And the fire plan report really is about furthering the value of the fire service and the principles of engineering practices and project management and so on to attain those efficiencies. Critical to the strategy is robust data gathering, and actually we'll talk a fair amount about data gathering and the usefulness of it as we go on. Strategy isn't a plan. Now, often people talk about strategic planning, but it's a bit of a misnomer. Planning are things such as we should build a new fire station, need to hire more staff, replace trucks and so on. Whereas a strategy is a hypothesis, it's an integrative set of choices, and the report actually talks about those set of choices that the municipality has. We got that right? Okay. So one of the things that we found with throughout the project is that there's data limitations, and fire departments, Central Elgin included, often captures input data, and those are things like the trucks and the people and equipment and so on. It's always gathered, almost always gathered. And then most record management systems provide information such as turnout time and response times, the number of firefighters responding or on scene. That's often gathered in fire departments, including Central Elgin. Where the real possibilities of efficiency come in is in what is not gathered. And it's not that a record isn't made after every call. Officers note a narrative. In other words, they indicate what happened on the scene, what they did, if in the case of a fire, how the fire was attacked and so on. But none of that's digital. None of that's captured in a record management system. And so what happens is that there's not a relational database, which creates a possibility. Well, actually, it's the circumstance that you can't relate the input and the output to the outcome, and there can't be a value assessment made. So sorry, I don't think we have the right we have the right presentation up. Nevertheless, let's move on. Okay, so some recommendations, and they come in three buckets, really. There's data gathering and measurement, service realignment, and staffing. We can go to the next one. And from a data gathering and measurement point of view, we suggest and recommend that there should be a tabular relational database and data gathering and data mining strategy. And we've talked about this in the report. A lot more detail in there about it. And also implement an integrated risk management planning program. This will help objectively assess risks and refine firefighter call-out practices. Your partners are quite important. With the Tillsonburg Fire Dispatch, for example, most of the time fire departments and dispatch centers aim for hitting a target time of taking in information and sending out emergency workers. We found that not to be an important factor in almost all cases. Sometimes it is important and it's pretty obvious. In most cases, it's not terribly important. And an extra 20, 30, or 40 seconds can be taken to find out exactly what is happening with the request for service. We listened to about 20 recordings from the Tillsonburg Dispatch Center, and we know in the number, based on the number that we listened to, the call is accepted, and that's their job. It's just that their job needs to change a little bit, and you can negotiate with the dispatch center to accomplish that. Fewer than 15% of incidents, can we go back one, please? fewer than 15% of incidents that the public and emergency workers consider an emergency are not. They aren't time sensitive to a certain extent. That's not to say you can wait till the next day. It's just that a few minutes aren't going to make a whole lot of difference. Fewer than 5% are life-threatening and require rapid response. There's many studies, peer-reviewed studies in scientific journals supporting this. Okay, we can go on to the next one. Again, Tillsonburg Fire Dispatch, working with Tillsonburg and the emergency department, the partners such as police and paramedic services, to ask key questions of callers before determining whether the fire service should be deployed and to what extent. Again, working with partners to define which non-fire events should be attended and understand the history of why fire departments attend a high proportion of non-fire events. Sorry, this isn't quite the right presentation, but I think in this presentation we'll be able to show you that only about 2% of incidents responded to are fires. On each call, examine a call-by-call basis the resources deployed to determine whether patterns exist by call type, which would allow assets and resources committed to be adjusted. There are patterns. For a long time, we've known there's certain patterns to the way calls come in and to what occurs as part of the outcome. And reassess under what circumstances the fire department should be dispatched to medical and other non-fire incidents. That's 80% of the call volume, non-fire incidents. Okay, we can go to the next one. Now, one of the things that hasn't been available until this time is technology to reduce the number of firefighters responding to medical and non-fire calls. Certainly in a fire situation or entrapment situations, other things like that. The more firefighters you can get out, the better, okay? In most cases that firefighters or fire services respond to and Central Elgin responds to, 1 or 2 firefighters will serve the purpose. And most of these are medical calls. We'll show you the pie chart in a minute. As an example, you know, there's 2 paramedics on an ambulance and 1 in a response, ambulance response vehicle. And just because of just because of the way firefighters are called out, you can get 4, 6, 8, 10 firefighters out to a medical call or a call where 1 or 2 people would satisfy. Can we go back a step? Are you able to? I am. Yeah, great, thanks. Okay, so if we can pop forward 5 or 6, and we'll see where we are then. Keep going. Okay, here we go. Back up a bit. So, thank you. Interesting statement. Alluded to W. Edwards Deming, and if you haven't heard of him, it's worth a few minutes to look him up, Google or Wikipedia, and you'll find out he's the reason why many of us are now driving Japanese cars instead of North American cars. And yeah. So basically, in God we trust, all others must bring data, and what we're saying is that what we're doing is bringing data and suggesting data as the source of decision making for Central Elgin's Fire Service. Okay. go ahead one. Okay, so we've gathered that one. It's the outcome data we need. We can go on one more. Something else Deming said is measures of productivity are like statistics on accidents. What they don't tell you is how to reduce the frequency of accidents. And the circumstance we have here is that the lack of outcome data doesn't allow Central Elgin to be able to reduce the frequency of call-outs or to optimize the resources that are sent to call-outs. And that's what we're really trying to get across in the report, and the opportunity to make changes without jeopardizing the public at all, saving a fair amount of money and becoming much more efficient while still being effective. Okay, we can go one more. Yeah, that's good. Thanks. So you'll see this in the report. The first 11 incident types, the ones in orange, account for 80% of responses in Central Elgin. The 12th one is fire. So, and that's really only 2% of the incidents. You go to the next one. What this shows you in a pie chart is as you follow that around, you'll see that other medical incidents are about 26, I can't read it all that well, but 26% of the calls that are responded to. Accident or illness next at 20%. Asphyxia, respiratory condition, again, medical, it's about 15%. Chest pains, again, medical, 10%. Vehicle accidents, vehicle collisions, that's around 9%. Many of the rest of those are 3%, and then in orange you see fire, it's 2%. So from the concept of fire services responding to fires and entrapments and so on, there's few of those in comparison to what fire services do. Okay? And what this shows you is by station, by year, the number of calls responded to. 2024 is missing 1 month. The data was available up until November, and then December is missing. So 2024 will be in line with the previous years. Just as an example, in Yarmouth Centre, you'll see the light blue line, which is 2023. It's 221 incidents responded to in 2023. And we pop onto the next slide. 751 vehicles were sent to those 221 incidents. So that's 3 vehicles. If you pace it through, there's 3 vehicles on average. Some of those, certainly, I think 4 that year were structure fires in Yarmouth Centre. The rest of the vehicles are responding to mostly incidents that require a couple of firefighters to assist. There's nothing that could be done about that until now, but we're going to suggest a way that more efficiency can be accomplished. Okay. Looking at fires, these are the actual structure fires, and there might be 1 or 2 missing here. We know that there were a few challenges with the records. Belmont, in some years, didn't have any structure fires. That's wonderful. Other years in the 2019 to 2024 period that we studied, there were a total of 3 fires. Where we see that most fires have occurred at Union Station, which was in 2020 with 5, and then in Yarmouth Centre again with 4 and 5 in 2023 and 2024. So few fires. Go ahead. So we look at the number of incidents. These are unique incidents. These aren't the trucks that went. This is just the total incidents per year. And the average number of firefighters that went to the incidents. So let's say around 10 firefighters, 9 to 10 firefighters go to all the incidents, each of the incidents. When you look at the annual turnout cost for firefighters in each of those years, they range somewhere between $400,000 and $450,000. And the annual staff turnouts at 7,000, in some cases approaching, well, 7,800 staff turnouts. And the cost per incident, now this is just for firefighter turnout, is $577 for each incident. And that's because you're getting an average of 10 people responding, which to some fire services would be really welcome. They have a hard time getting response by firefighters. So this is a really good thing. Go to the next one. Okay. When we take into account all the costs, operational costs of these aren't capital costs, but operational costs of the incidents, we find that they range on a cost per call basis. This includes the, operating the trucks, maintaining the fire stations, et cetera, staff turnout, somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 per call. In some ways, if your call volume goes up, your operational cost relatively comes down, but not substantially. Next one. From the point of view of medical and vehicle collisions, turnout costs, and we think we've underestimated these, quite frankly. In the 6 years, about $700,000, and between the two types of events, a little over $800,000 has been spent. Again, there's been no choice, and in some ways, the municipality should feel that this is really a good thing to be able to get that many people to turn out, except it's an overabundance of the situation. Right? So, sort of recapping here, medical incidents and traffic events accounted for 70% of fire department activity between 2019 and 2024, and 64% of turnout costs. In comparison, City of Ottawa, only 17% of Ottawa fire services responses were to medical incidents versus 60%, approximately 16%. Go to the next one. Continuing with medical incidents, available records show that paramedics arrive before firefighters 30% of the time. In that case, unless it's assistance with the patient, firefighters aren't necessarily needed in that situation. Paramedics arrive within 2 minutes and less of the fire service in 44% of medical incidents. So 70 to 74, 75% of cases, paramedics are there within a very short time frame. The reason 2 minutes is important is because that's the length of time it takes for firefighters to do a round of vitals on a patient. And if the paramedics are arriving at essentially the same time, there's not even time to do a set of vitals. And the paramedics will do a set of vitals when they get there, which is, doesn't mean that they don't trust the firefighters, but they're responsible for the patient, so they'll do their own vitals. In only 6% of cases were firefighters on scene more than 10 minutes before paramedics. So really what we're finding is fire services, Central Elgin included, are all risk services. Only a small number of incidents are the historical fires that we saw 50, 60, 100 years ago. The response is the same, and there's been no choice. You need to get somebody out, you call everybody out and make sure that some people get there. Few incidents, 5 to 7%, are critical to the point that minutes and seconds make a difference. And there's a way of telling which those incidents are. We've been doing it for many years, so it doesn't mean you get it right all the time, but you rarely get it wrong. Most events require 1 or 2 responders rather than 8 or 9. And what we really need to look at is, can response assets be reconciled with the need? Is there a way of accomplishing that? Okay, so technology limitations. We've covered that general callouts were used. One of the ways that we're seeing in Europe, mostly in Europe, is that they have a method of paging using geolocating. So if there's an incident, depending on the structure of the fire service, the dispatch center pages out the number of staff that are needed that are closest to the fire station, or through some other parameter. So it's not a general call out. That kind of paging application is now available in North America. It's not recent. It's been used for many years for hospitals and oil workers for emergencies, those type of things. So it's not new technology. It's technology that's becoming available. We're going to skip the recommendations. Let's go to the next slide. So earlier on, we were talking about data gathering and measurement. And one of the things that happens is that Central Elgin Fire Rescue has a number of partners which really have an effect on how frequently the fire department is dispatched. And it's by practice. You know, paramedic services, quite frankly, in a lot of cases, like to have the fire department on scene. The police like to have the fire department on road accidents, particularly for blocking, if not for extrication from a vehicle. And the dispatch center, as we talked about earlier, has a role. And to this point, the role has been to take the call as opposed to screening calls. And they're not going to screen it by themselves. They're going to screen it in partnership with Central Elgin if you decide to move towards that. Okay. So can we go down one more and one more? Okay, so we were into service realignment, and when we got this presentation up, we've talked about the call-out methodology. One of the things that we're recommending is amalgamation of the Union and Port Stanley fire stations. The reason for this is that they're 2 kilometers apart, 2 minutes and 4 seconds driving at the speed limit. And when we look at the next slide, which is an example of where fires are in 2024 and what sort of risk and effect there'll be, it'll pop up any minute now. It's not cooperating. What you'll see, and these maps are in the report, what you'll see is that there was one fire in 2024 that may be affected by about 2 minutes if the Union Station was not in place and response was out of Port Stanley. The other thing is, as the chief has mentioned, is that there's partners who will provide automatic aid close by, which when judging the response times and mapping out the response times from Melanthon? Malahide, thank you. Malahide was similar to the response time from Union for that particular fire and for fires in that area. So when you look at an integrated risk assessment, you would find that there wouldn't be a greater risk by amalgamating the Union Station. That's okay, we can stick with that one. So from a staffing point of view, staffing. Some other things that we want to recommend is hiring or contracting a 24-hour-a-week part-time training position. Firefighters are doing a great job now with the training committee, but they're putting in a lot of hours. They're not being paid for the hours. And a part-time training position would certainly augment and assist throughout the fire service. The other thing, without a doubt, and I have to say we probably recommend this in almost all our studies, if these aren't in place, is a full-time prevention and public education position. There's a number of studies, again, scientific studies, mostly in Europe, but certainly also in Canada, which indicate and actually specify the reduction in structure in other fires in municipalities that implement targeted prevention and public education campaigns and have staff on hand to do that work. We're also saying that if no changes are made as recommended within the report, that it would be reasonable after 2028, 2030, somewhere in that area, that the chief would probably request an assistant or a deputy fire chief to assist with the increases in the call volume. It's going up at an average of 5% a year right now. Fires aren't going up. It's other call volume that's going up. So if the changes aren't made, it wouldn't be unreasonable to ask for a deputy chief. So I can't really read this too well, but I've probably got it memorized. So let me just take you through the numbers. Microsoft would like your perspective. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. That's good. Okay, so one of the things we've recommended is to work with the record management system provider and with the record management system provider and come up with a outcome database. We figure that's about $20,000. On-page selective paging, there might be others that are available. This is the geofenced paging. Costs somewhere between $37,000 and $44,000 a year. And if you extrapolate all the way over to the right, that's the total for 10 years. If it's easier to pull up the previous one, if it still works, the slide is the same for that. Oh, that's good. Okay. So the next line down where it says average cost of firefighter response, and we've calculated a 40% reduction in the number of incidents to which firefighters respond and the number of people that would respond. So we're not suggesting to you to bring the numbers down to 2, although that could be accomplished, but that's sort of looking at 4 or 5 or 6 people responding per call. That reduction adds up to about $4 million over 10 years. You'll see the subtotal. We go down further, the staffing recommendations, the training officer, the prevention public ed officer, and the deputy fire chief adds up to about $3.7 million. So going further with that, the subtotal of the staffing between those two, sorry, I said $4.2 million. The net out of that category is $3.8 million. Additional staffing over 10 years, assuming that deputy chief is hired, is $3.7 million. which, only leaves about $100,000 difference. But then there's things like the a change in the cost of maintaining the Union Station, and also perhaps retiring Union Station, which is identified as about $810,000 by a municipal report. These aren't our figures. The station maintenance, et cetera, vehicles, as well as Union Station itself, adds up to those lines that we're showing there. Again, these are from the municipality's records rather than ours. If you look down at the bottom right-hand corner, we show that when all those net outs are taken into account, the outcome could be $1 million saving over 10 years. In fact, depending on decisions made, it probably could be more than that, because we're only calculating a 40% reduction as opposed to a 60% reduction is what we think would be possible. And I think that's it. Do we have one more? And that's it. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Thank you. Chief, do you have any follow-up, sir?
So I just want to, through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to mention that I have a lot of respect for what Mr. Hambidis has done, the work that his team has done, the work that retired Chief Omerod has put into this to gather the information and the data. I think there's a lot of great information within this report. And I think for myself, that is why I think recommending for it to be used as a non-binding strategic document to move forward with some of our decision-making, I think is the best practical step for us.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comments? Councillor Griffin, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Sloan. I want to thank Mr. Hambidis for his presentation. And as a person who does appreciate data, I very much appreciate the idea of working from the data to try and make things more efficient. I agree that, for example, we probably do need fewer firefighters at medical calls than at fires, but I have concerns about Union Station. And my concern with that is that I feel like this high-level data doesn't really give us a good picture of the community that we serve. So, for example, it's true that it's only a 2-minute difference between Port Stanley and Union, and for most of Central Elgin, I don't think that makes a big difference, but who it really does affect is the people to our east, right? And our east includes Sparta, which, if you drive through it, is predominantly wood-framed, often wood-clad, often wood-heated, right? And it's true that Malahide could take care of them, but that's like the opposite of an arms race. That's like saying, we are going to get rid of things because they have it. And we don't have a shared fire plan, so we don't know what they're going to choose to keep or retire either. So how do we account for that?
Thank you. Do you want to respond? Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Mayor. I'm not a fan of closing Union at all. I'll just say that right out. But my struggle with the data is, why did we pick 5 minutes and 8 minutes? Because, so if you pick 5 minutes and 8 minutes, you got 3 minutes in between. So if the Port Stanley Hall can get to a lot of the Union calls in 5 minutes, why wasn't 3 minutes a thought? So like if 3 minutes is your in between, it just seems like if you picked 15 minutes, well, you could easily get from Port Stanley to Belmont in 15 minutes, say. So I struggle with the 5-minute conversation. Figure of speech, Councillor Bachman. I struggle with the 5 minutes because I know that our firefighters in Union get to places much quicker than 5 minutes is my conversation in that. So when we're looking at closing a hall, I'd like data that is actually a little bit more relevant as to what they're accomplishing now, as to what the numbers are stating in your report. So I find a flaw in that, and I'll just say it that way. My other concern is with the $1 million savings. That's what's selling the Union Fire Hall for $800,000. past council just spent $7.3 million on a new fire hall in Port Stanley. So I'd struggle with selling an asset when down the road, if we had to replace it, would definitely cost us more than $800,000. And I don't agree that that would, with closing Union, we wouldn't continue to have the level of service that we have. Thank you.
Okay, a couple of comments. Did you wish to speak, sir?
Yeah, and first of all, I think, addressing the 5 and 8 minute contours, what they indicate is 5 and 8 minute demarcation points. So there's a range in there. Certainly, if an incident was 200 yards from the Union Station, they're going to get there probably in a minute. So that just shows a range. And yes, we could have chosen 4 and 8 minutes. We could have chosen 3 minutes. If we go by 1720, National Fire Protection Association 1720, that's got a range within range, up to 9 minutes and 13 minutes. So we just found that over the years, 5 and 8 minutes is something that people appreciate, that they can think about, and it hits a target with them, so that's what we do. It's very simple to change those contours. What it doesn't change by changing the contours is how long it takes to respond, and if there were any incidents, because we're looking at a 5-year, 6-year range of incidents, and if nothing happens from an integrated risk assessment point of view, if it shows that nothing or very few incidents have happened anywhere, then the risk is pretty small. That may change in future years, and we've looked at that as well, but the risk is low. Sorry?
Sorry, no, I thought you were,
Okay.
no, I didn't mean to interrupt. Apologize.
And I think your other question was about the station and also commenting on Union Station, whether it should be amalgamated or not. As I said, we really look at the data, and if we were in a greenfield situation, we're doing station location studies in other places in Canada right now, and one of the things that we do is we say, where would you put a station or stations if you were starting afresh? And so there wouldn't be a recommendation to put a station 2 kilometers from another station. So agreed, you have that station there. It's almost more difficult to take away than to put there, but looked at the other way, if we had made a recommendation, theoretically, in some municipality, which said, put a station here, put another station 2 kilometers away, it's going to cost, several million to maintain it and build it and so on. It's not something that most councils would entertain. So we're looking strictly at the data and the need, and it's certainly up to council to make the best decisions for the community.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, if I could get a mover and a seconder for the report. Councillor Griffin? Oh, sorry, I didn't know.
If I may, Mayor Sloan, I would like to move that we take most of this recommendation with the exception of the matter of planning to retire Union Station.
I think that, well, I can ask what the council's decision is, but I think that it's was told in my conversations with the chief, this would be used as a document, a working document, so that if anything was to happen, chief, you'd be coming back here. Is that correct? Do you want to comment, sir?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So at this point in time, the recommendation is to accept the master fire plan as a non-binding strategic direction document to guide future decision-making. So we're not accepting any recommendations. We're not adopting any recommendations at this point. What it would be is that this would then be statistics and data that we can use as we start to plan to move forward. Any changes, anything outside of my authority in the establishing and regulating bylaw would come to this council, as any decisions would at this time through our budget discussions or through reports to implement change. So it's not accepting the recommendations at this time.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, through you. I do understand that it's non-binding. My concern is that if it's meant to guide future decision-making, I wonder how much time, energy, and staff involvement is going to be spent to potentially move us toward reports and so forth, guided on an action that I don't necessarily think I endorse.
Did you want to speak to it, or what can I? Do you want to put an amendment on the floor?
It's not on the floor.
Oh, sorry, it's not on the floor yet.
Through your worship, Mayor Sloan, to Councillor Griffin, might I suggest that the recommendation gets placed on the floor, and then if you'd like to include an amendment to have to come some wording that the recommendation concerning the Union Fire Hall something have to be removed from or not considered, or something to that effect, just to get it, at this point it's not on the floor for debate. Or do you have a motion crafted to put on the floor at this time?
I would like to keep my motion as simple as what is on the paper, with an exception of planning to retire Union Station. And I mean, if you really prefer it, we could bring the regular motion and then look to amend it. But I don't understand how procedurally that's any different from starting with this motion and seeing whether it has a seconder.
Through the mayor to yourself, it's not, I was just trying to assist. So if that is, if you have the wording, if we could give it to Ms. Leach, then we could, she could read it aloud.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, would you like me to propose specific wording?
Mayor Sloan, through to council, the proposed amendment would be that that the 2025 Fire Master Plan be accepted as a non-binding strategic direction document to guide future decision-making with the exclusion of retiring Station Number 2, that the 2025 Community Risk Assessment be approved as required under OREG 378-18 of the Fire Protection and Prevention Act and adopted as the municipality's official CRA of record, and that staff be directed to use the CRA and the strategic insights of the Master Fire Plan to inform future budget, operational planning, fire prevention programming, and long-term capital strategies.
Do you want to move it, Todd? So the movers, Councillor Griffin. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion fails. Okay, moving on to Director of Planning and Engineering Services, DPE 1025, paid parking rate study. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the study?
Could we please record the motion first? Or the
Sorry, I have Councillor Griffin first. Sorry, Councillor Graham. Councillor Graham.
So my question is, through the chair to the CAO, do we not go back and have the original motion moved, seconded, and voted on?
That is entirely up to council.
Is that your recommendation? Okay.
That's the motion I'm making, yes.
Seconder? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, does part of that not need to pass to satisfy the province on some of our fire stuff?
Through your worship to the Deputy Mayor, that's why I suggested an amendment. However, since this failed, then council can bring back the original motion, something different, whichever they prefer.
Okay. What about the original motion? Councillor Graham's put it forward. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Graham, seconded by Councillor Watson, that the 2025 Master Fire Plan be accepted as a non-binding strategic direction document to guide future decision-making, that the 2025 Community Risk Assessment be approved as required under OREG 378-18 of the Fire Protection and Prevention Act and adopted as the municipality's official CRA of record, and that staff be directed to use the CRA and the strategic insights of the Master Fire Plan to inform future budget, operational planning, fire prevention programming, and long-term capital strategies.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. On to the Director of Planning and Engineering Services, DPE 1025, is the paid parking rate study. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Griffin, Councillor or Deputy Mayor.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Griffin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble, that bylaw number 2526, rates and fees bylaw, be amended to increase parking lot rates to $6 an hour and proximity pricing of $30 for Main Beach and Lotus Lane lots, $25 for Old Ball Park, Little Beach and West Pier lots, and $20 for East Pier and West Pier expansion lots. That bylaw number 2526, rates and fees bylaw, be amended to increase the non-resident seasonal parking pass fee to $130. That bylaw number 2526, rates and fees bylaw, be amended to add a Central Elgin resident seasonal parking pass at a cost of $65, and that staff be directed to prepare a draft paid parking reserve policy for council consideration.
Questions or comments, please? Councillor Griffin?
Thank you. Through you, I've spoken with a number of people that have had success with either giving free or reduced rate passes to their residents in a number of communities, and overwhelmingly what I hear is positive. So I was really excited to see that in the report for tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Graham, please.
Through the chair, I have a few questions. So first of all, I just wanted to clarify what the West Pier lot was versus the West Pier expansion lot.
Mr. Brooks, please.
The West Pier parking lot that's referred to in the report is the West Pier lot that is in operation throughout the summer. I believe the expansion area is what we expanded upon last year during Labor Day. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, so the West. Sorry, the West Pier parking lot is the other half of the boat launch parking lot area. The West Pier expansion is the permanent area that we added on to the north of that area with the, I believe it was last year that we did that.
So I see that the adjustments in the parking rates are supposed to yield an additional $245,000 per season. But how can you tell how much the Central Elgin parking pass will reduce revenue? Like, do we have stats saying this many people came from Central Elgin, this many people came from outside of Central Elgin and used the parking?
No, we don't have those specific stats. In raising the non-resident pass while reducing the resident pass, the thought is it would likely keep the revenue fairly consistent from previous years, but we don't have any specific stats for how many are residents purchasing passes versus non-residents.
Okay, so we're increasing the non-resident parking lot by $10, correct? It went from $120 to $130?
From $103.50 to $130.
So $27. And we're reducing 103 down to 65 for the Central Elgin residents, so a reduction in 40, but we have no stats on what percentage. So we can't really say how much any increase or reduction is going to be producing for revenue if we have no stats on that.
You are correct, yes.
And one other question. So why did we not increase the boat launch parking lot?
So the thought with that one was there wasn't enough data from other municipalities that had a boat launch parking pass to really gauge where ours was in relation to other places. So the thought was to just keep it consistent for the time being.
Okay, so just to confirm, you're devising this plan based on other areas then, comparison with other areas rather than just...
So we took into consideration the cost of resident-based passes in other areas as well as non-residence-based passes in other areas, while also taking into consideration the increased amenities that were in Port Stanley, such as the twice per week beach cleaning, the lifeguards that we offer, which most other places don't. So we wanted to kind of use Grand Bend as our closest comparator in that because they have those similar amenities. We wanted to stay a little bit below them while also bringing our prices up closer to the average of the other comparable municipalities.
Okay. And will you amend the report then, because we can't really say, you know, that we're going to be increasing by $245,000 if we don't have any stats to back that up? Will you amend that report then?
If that's the will of council, we absolutely can do that. The increases weren't necessarily based on the seasonal passes. The increase in parking related revenue came from the daily or the hourly rates and the daily rates. The seasonal passes wasn't factored into that.
Okay, sorry, just to confirm, so you didn't use any seasonal parking revenue to devise the additional revenue that you're planning on having at $245,000?
No, we did not.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, Councillor Griffin?
Thank you, through you. I do want to highlight that this sort of parking change actually doesn't just help with creating more revenue to cover some of our tourist amenities. It's also something that I've been doing some reading on this. I've been reading The High Cost of Free Parking, and one of the things that it talks about is that in an ideal parking situation, you're charging enough to people from outside of your community to cover those tourist things, but also to compel people to make decisions about whether they can come up with better solutions for themselves. So for example, if we have a better price on parking for our residents, and if you have a friend coming from out of town, this sort of parking structure motivates people to get 2 or 3 friends that have vehicles to park in their own driveway and shuttle them to the beach or things like that, which decongests and gets rid of the demand, right? That helps us to make it so that everyone can find parking. You don't have people circling around, and then that helps to reduce things like the difficulty getting through intersections and down our roads. So, I mean, this isn't just about the money, although it is lovely if it creates revenue. This is also about finding ways to decongest a tourist area.
Other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. I'm asked if we could have a 5-minute recess. Is that okay with council? We just need to do a little bit of work here before we watch the next, before we get the next presentation. We'll do a 5-minute recess. Thank you. allowing us a brief recess. Our next presenter is with respect to DPE 1125, the Pleasant Valley Bridge. We have Mansoor Khorsand, who's the senior project manager, Safe Roads Engineering. I believe, Jeff, is he here online?
Mayor Sloan, he was going to be online.
Okay. I will defer to Ms. Scarlett.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, this is Mansoor Khorsand from Safe Road Engineering. I'm here to present the.
Welcome, sir. We can hear you. We're just waiting for a presentation, please.
Sure.
Oh, it's there. I'm sorry. Pardon me. Your presentation's here.
Yeah, if someone from your end is going to control the page because I don't have access to the pages.
Okay. You can advise, and Ms. Scarlett will advance at your direction, if that's okay, sir.
Sure, yeah. Can we go to the page number 2? I'm just going to say what we are going to present in this presentation.
Thank you.
Sure. We are actually retained by the municipality of Central Elgin to complete the design for the rehabilitation of the Pleasant Valley Line Bridge. In this presentation, I'm going to review the history of the Bailey Bridge and provide the condition assessment that we during our inspection of the bridge, and we are going to present the finding of this. And after that, I'm going to compare our finding and the resident engineer actually opinion letter that we received from the Elgin Center. And then I'm going to compare the cost estimation for the bridge rehabilitation and repair and with what you actually received from the resident engineer. And finally, I'm going to go over the bridge capacity to provide you with some information. Can we go to the page number 3? Can we go to the next page, number 3? I'm not sure, can you see the page number 3 or not, but I'm going to just talk about that page. The Bailey Bridge invented by British engineer called Sir Donald Bailey, and it was used widely by Allied force during the World War II. And this bridge is known for the flexibility, versatility, and the easiest of the erection and transfer to the site. They are light, flexible, portable, and prefabricated modular bridge that can be installed with 6 men. It was the intent of this bridge actually used during the World War. And back then was used as a pontoon or fixed bridge and with a deck and truss system adapted to the 4 different actually span and different condition on the site. And back then in 50s and 60s was widely used by the MTO for the temporary or semi-permanent bridge and for the rural area. And later at the time, the Maybe Johnson Group acquired this actually patent from the British Army, and they start to build, they are develop it and make it better condition and start to prepare the Maybe Bridge. And now this type of bridge actually widely manufactured in North America by Acro, Algonquin, and other supplier. Okay, I want to go to the next page to show some picture from the bridge condition. If anybody hearing me.
Aye, sir, we're on slide 4.
Okay, as you can see, in this slide, we have a picture of the stringer that in total of 42 stringer are in the east side of the bridge, west side of the bridge is severely crowded, and there is a section loss. And as you can see in the picture, the stringer and the bridging between them is severely crowded, and the section is lost, and they are in the bad shape and in the not in the good situation to carry out the load of the bridge. If you go to the page number 5, there is 11 transom out of 39 of transom in the bridge is also in this almost in the same condition. They are crowded and the section loss, and they are in the poor condition. And the rest of these transom are not in the good shape, but they are in the fair to acceptable condition. If you go to the page number 6, also there is a sway bracing that in total 14 of them is actually used for this bridge, and all of them are in the very poor condition and they are severely corroded, and some of them is totally actually detached from the bridge. If you go to the page number 7, there's a picture of the bearing. There's a picture of the base plate that transfer the load from the upper structure of the bridge to the concrete part of the bridge, as like abutment and pier. As you can see in the picture, the base plate is fully deteriorated, and there is a actually obvious sign of the severe lamination, and also the bearing part of the what that's sitting in under the bridge to transfer the load to the base plate also in the same condition. And if you go to the next page, this is the picture of the truss of the bridge. The truss is actually generally in the good condition with minor actually defect and decoloration, and there is a very actually light corrosion on the pin and the connection component. And in the picture of 9, you see the timber deck, and this timber deck is generally in the fair condition, and there is some checks and how originally we actually recommended to replace this timber deck with a steel deck to prevent the penetration of the actually runoff water into the lower structure, and made because most of this actually deterioration and corrosion is happening because of the de-icing that used on the bridge, and the water when the ice is melt, the salty water is going over the steel part of the structure and start to deteriorate and corrode them. If we go to the page number 10, this is the concrete part of the bridge. As you can see, the concrete part shows lots of pothole, honeycombing, and segregation and severe erosion on that surface. Also, we have the same condition on the east side of the pier footing. And recently, we received the information from the original bridge construction that shows the concrete part of bridge was built 106 years ago, and there is it seems there is some repair happened on this section, but not fully actually repaired. But the core part of this structure is the concrete part of the structure is more than a century old. If we go to the page number 11, you can see the west abutment is disintegrated and severely scaled, and the big chunk of concrete is separated from the core part of the structure part because of the deterioration, and as I said, because of the salt that affected this part of the structure as well. If you go to the next page, we have the same condition, almost the same condition at the pier as well. There is a lot of segregation and severe scaling on that concrete part that we can see in the picture. In the slide number 13, we just explained that most of these actually corrosion of the stringent and transom happening on the west side of the bridge, where the actually very steep slope is ending up to the bridge. And as I mentioned, there is all this de-icing material that used on the road is actually overflowing over the bridge and going to the lower part of the structure and start to corrode and erode that steel part of the structure below the deck. To actually prevent this, one of the actually section that we included in the design to build the trench before the bridge deck to actually redirect this run of water from the bridge and actually prevent that salted water is going over the bridge and continue to actually corrode the steel part of the bridge. If we go to the slide number 14, in this section we are going to compare the actually ore finding between and the ore finding and compare it with the what you have received from the residential engineer on the that we also going to speak about the load decking. And I believe I have my colleague here. I'm not really sure or not, but we did some calculation on the bridge load, and our main concern is we are not actually repair the bridge or rehabilitate the bridge. This bridge actually there's a concern of the collapse of the bridge because of all this deteriorated section and component in the bridge. And any delay in the repairing the concrete part is going to be resulted in the more actually deterioration of the concrete, and is going to be more costly in the future if we are not started right away. One of the options that we actually consider and develop during the design to just do the minor rehabilitation on the bridge to allow the bridge to withhold the load of the ambulance, the box truck with the 50 kilonewton. And based on our calculation, this bridge cannot withstand the load of the Ontario truck, the 625 kilonewton. If you go to the slide number 16, one of the items that actually developed in the resident engineer report that they recommended to do the repair on the site and just add some welded plate on the stringer and the bridging between them, and which is, to our understanding, to work over the 6 meters above the water body and do the repair on the elements is going to be costly and is going to be labor intensive, and is not going to save any money. The other problem that is the elements are most of that 42 elements are in the very bad shape, which is you cannot add any plate and weld it because there is a lot of section loss, and even the core material of these elements are also deteriorated and cannot withstand any additional supports with the welding. And also, some of these stringers has a very thin, actually, section which is not. There is no way to add any actual reinforcement element on them and welded on them. That's why we believe the repair in place is not going to be option. Is not going to be more cheaper than replacement of these elements. If we go to the slide number 17, as we mentioned, the abutment and pier need the prevention repair to make sure is not going to continuously deteriorated because of the salty water that coming over that elements from the de-icing during the winter. And because of the severe erosion happening on east side of the pier footing, is going to be threaten the long-term pier integrity. And as I mentioned, the concrete part is built more than 100 years ago, which is almost in the last stage of their lifespan. If you go to the slide number 16, the timber deck is in the fair condition, but still we can consider to reuse them during after the repair of the steel part of the structure, which means some of them should be replaced, but most of them can be reused during the repair and stay in the place after repair of the coarse portion of the bridge, which is we prefer to use the as we mentioned, we prefer to use the steel deck to prevent the actually infiltration of the water from the surface of the bridge to the lower section of the structure. But again, the wooden part also, the wooden part is still usable, and we can reuse them actually after repair of the bridge. And so one of the actual recommendation in the resident engineer report was to use the membrane to actually prevent the water infiltrating to the lower structure. Usually the membrane should be supported by asphalt, which is in this case, if we add the asphalt to actually make the membrane sit in the safe place, is going to add the dead load on the bridge, which is not a good actually consideration for this application. If we go to the slide number 19. Okay, based on the available information, we know this bridge is reconstructed in 1986, which means near 40 years ago. And we believe even the truss part, which is in the good condition, as we cannot actually evaluate the fatigue in that section, we prefer to not go to the full capacity of the truss because of the age of the bridge. And as I mentioned, in 15 and 16, MTO usually use this bridge as a temporary bridge, and they are transferring this bridge along the province everywhere that they want, which that's why we know is reconstructed in 1986, while we are not sure this is the actually brand new bridge was installed in 1986 in this location. And for the estimate, we prepared the report. In our report, we consider other actually costs that related to this repair or reconstruction of the bridge, which is, I believe, is not actually accounted in the resident engineer report. They just actually consider the cost of the elements and installation. But what we actually consider in our cost, if we go to the slide number 21, we consider cost of the mobilization and access to the work and platform to work on over the water body, and we also consider the cost to build that drainage ditch that I mentioned earlier, and also lots other costs that should be considered, like a traffic control, concrete patching, and concrete resurfacing. And also when you the cost that is provided by ACRO or Algonquin, just cost of the element itself, but the delivery and offloading on the site is not included in the quote that the resident engineer got from them. Is not included the offloading and placement in the site. That's why we believe this. The reason that we are in the higher, we have a higher cost actually estimation for this bridge, because we consider lots other small actually elements that we have to consider during the repair or the construction of the new bridge on the site. The slide number 23 shows that the actually demand to the capacity, which is we just consider that one to show that most of the actually main elements of the deck structure is not capable to withstand the load of the Ontario track, and that's why we are reduced the load of the capacity load of the bridge because of the analysis. In conclusion, we believe the bridge requires immediate repair or replacement to safely reopen for the public use. The bridge cannot support Ontario truck load 625 kilonewton or Ontario 625, and is going to be huge risk of the collapse if we actually left it unrepaired in place. Also, the severely corroded steel member must be fully replaced, and welding or patching is unsafe and uneconomical. The cost estimate by resident engineer excluded several critical components, so actual cost will be higher. And we believe the delaying of the rehabilitation will accelerate the deterioration and substantially increase the future repair cost for the concrete part. And considering the bridge age and unknown fabrication date, fatigue issue are possible, and load posting need to be placed after repair of the bridge. Structural analysis confirmed the existing member lack adequate bending capacity for the applied load. And as I mentioned, our cost estimation includes lots other smaller pieces that should be considered during the repair or reconstruction of the bridge. I am open to any question if you have.
Sorry, questions or comments? Okay with that, sir?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Counselor.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Hey, Mansoor, is there different levels of bridge sizes and different costs that you're aware of? Like, maybe we don't need a 625, maybe is there one called like a 40-ton bridge, or is there different levels or sizes we could acquire? Thanks.
Right now, every bridge that designed in the Ontario is following the CHPDC, which is part of this actually code requirement to design the bridge based on the MTO loading truck requirement, which is 625 kilonewton weight of the truck, which means you cannot go and buy the lighter bridge to withhold the lighter truck. They have to follow CHPDC, and this is the requirement by the CHPDC.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Leach, I think you've got a motion.
Mayor Sloan, through you to council, that staff be directed to investigate the feasibility of issuing 2 concurrent requests for proposals for the Pleasant Valley Bridge project, specifically one for option 1, repair option 1, minor rehabilitation in option 3A to replace the bridge with a panel bridge with a steel deck suitable for CL 625 highway loading for replacement as outlined in staff report DPE 1125. That if the investigation concludes that concurrent request for proposals is feasible, the Director of Corporate Services and Treasurer be delegated the authority to issue both design, build, request for proposals simultaneously. and that the results of both requests for proposals be presented to council for review, consideration, and final funding allocation.
Mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Watson. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. DPE 1225, application for consent, 85588-590 Centennial Road. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor. Councillor Griffin, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Griffin, that the applications for consent for 8558 and 8590 Centennial Road be supported subject to the conditions as outlined in Appendix 1 of Report DPE 1225, and that staff be directed to forward a copy of Report DPE 1225 and approve conditions to the Elgin County Land Division Committee for consideration.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Director of Public Works and Community Services, PWCS 1125, Contract Award, Community Service Master Plan. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bachmann, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Bachmann, that the proposal submitted by Monteith Brown Planning Consultants to develop a consolidated community services master plan for the municipality of Central Elgin in the amount of $119,994.38 plus HST be accepted, and that the mayor and deputy clerk be authorized to sign the agreement with Monteith Brown Planning Consultants.
Questions or comments for Mr. Mayers? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. PWCS 1225, YMCA Aquatics Pass Pilot Program. Mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Griffin, Deputy Mayor.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Griffin, seconded by Deputy Mayor Noble, that the Memorandum of Understanding between the Municipality of Central Elgin and the YMCA of Southwestern Ontario be approved for the Aquatics Pass Pilot Program, and that the allocation of $15,000 to support the Aquatic Pass Pilot Program in the 2026 operating budget be approved, and that the mayor and deputy clerk be authorized to sign the agreement between the Municipality of Central Elgin and the YMCA of Southwestern Ontario for the Aquatics Pass Pilot Program.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Bylaws. Mover and a seconder for the bylaws, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Watson, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Watson, that bylaws 2025-58, 59, 60, 61, and 62 be read a first and second time.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Notice of motion from the Deputy Mayor. Sir?
Through you, Mayor, I think it's, for most of us, it's well known that there's been some changes proposed to the conservation authorities in Ontario. And the biggest challenge, I think, is the fact that Central Elgin will get lumped in with 81 other municipalities in one large new conglomerate. And I think that's concerning. I'd like to see that something different happen there if that's the will of the province, and that a smaller area be proposed.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Griffin? Seeing, we'll just run this one through, or you want to speak to it? Okay.
Thank you, if I may, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank you so much, Deputy Mayor, for bringing this. At Catfish Creek, Dusty and I had composed a letter to very similar effect to the municipality, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem to have been sent in time to make it to the agenda. I was concerned when I saw that, and so I was very relieved to see that you guys were taking charge of the same thing.
All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Can I get a mover and a seconder to proceed into close, please? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bachmann, thank you.
Mayor Sloan, the motion reads, moved by Deputy Mayor Noble, seconded by Councillor Bogman, that the council proceed into closed session at 8:43 p.m. in order to address a matter pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees, and closed session minutes for the special meeting of council dated November 24th, 2025.
All those in favor? Opposed? And we're in closed. Thank you.